going on, guys? Welcome back to Before the Whistle. I'm your host, Maddy, and while I promised I would be back as regularly scheduled on Friday, I am without a typical Friday guest. Just to be upfront, I really didn't have the time this week. It's difficult with the travel days to find, a good guest to preview the Owls. But to be honest with you, they're a little bit of an enigma, and one that I kind of wanted to just dive into myself and kind of see what I was able to parse out of their last victory against Tulsa, which was 42-10. Looking at their schedule, it's really hard to get a sense of it's going to be Tulane's third new conference opponent this year. The first two being UAB and North Texas, but not a first-year head coach and certainly not a first-year quarterback in JT Daniels. But again, it's hard to really say what kind of team you're looking at here. They lose 37-10 to Texas Tech in the first game of the season. Then they beat Houston in overtime, 43-41. They blow out Texas Southern, who's an FCS program. Then they lose 42-29 to USF, barely beat East Carolina 24-17, end up losing to UConn 38-31, and then this 42-10 blowout against Tulsa. So I guess if I had the time, I would have liked to watch more than just this Tulsa matchup, but this really gave an opportunity to show how explosive their offense is. And it's one that if you're, again, looking at the last couple of games for Tulane, at least, the idea of it being a tale of two halves, I don't know how else to describe this game that I just watched against Tulsa, that put Rice to be ultimately 4-3 on the year and 2-1 in conference play. Again, that was a 42-10 victory. They had 3 turnovers in the first quarter. The Owls had 5 turnovers all year up to that point, and they scored off of the first 2, which were an interception and a fumble recovery. So they had 3 touchdown drives in the first half, 3 touchdown drives in the second half. The first half touchdown drives pretty much took up like 3 minutes total. The first drive was 2 plays for 70 yards and a rushing touchdown. That took 39 seconds off the clock. The next touchdown drive, which was off of a fumble recovery, was 2 plays for 53 yards and a passing touchdown, 55 seconds off the clock. And then their longest drive of the half, 6 plays for 74 yards, only 36 seconds because they threw 6 passes in a row. So that's really how they opened that first half, almost acting like they were coming from behind. When you look at their numbers, they're outscoring their opponents 90-13 in the first quarter. That's a pretty stark contrast. And they're 4-1 on the year when they're leading at halftime, but 4-0 when they're leading after the third quarter. So that's something that, looking at the last game for Tulane, where they really had to pull things together and have that final drive for that game and really control the clock, they are definitely battling a clock control counterpart in just, again, a very bizarre way, because those first 3 touchdown drives, you're acting like you're needing to really come from behind and that you're in a hurry up 2-minute offense. They have 3 touchdown drives in the second half. The first one is 6 for 75 yards. They have 4 rushes on this drive and a rushing touchdown. That takes 3 minutes and 28 seconds off the clock. Then their final 2 drives, they go 13 plays for 91 yards. 6 of those are rush plays. They had 4 third down conversions on that drive. It was a rushing touchdown, 8:05 time of possession on that drive. Then they follow that up with their final drive for 14 plays for 96 yards, 11 of which were rushing plays. They had 2 third down conversions, 1 fourth down conversion, rushing touchdown in that one, 9 minutes and 56 seconds time of possession. I mean, I believe it added up to 22-30 as their second half margin. I mean, that's just a complete domination of the second half, and really one that they almost completely changed their identity. Tulane, they have had a really strong run defense all season, and that's certainly going to need to show up for Rice, because they have 3 running backs and they ran all 3 back there at several different times in the game, including that final drive. They were really rotating them, but their leading guy, let me find his name because it's now going to elude me, Dean Connors, 0 for them. He reminds me a lot of Tajay Spears in terms of his versatility. More often than not, he was the guy in motion. You would have him go out have an empty set, have him split out wide, and frequently targeted him as a receiver as well. And he has good route running and good hands, but really good vision, patience, and burst up the hole as a running back as well. And that second half, they really just dominated on the ground. There's a lot of different ways to chart plays in football. And to be honest with you, I've really had to kind of learn to cut mine down, especially for podcast form. But a lot of those come from my reading of Take Your Eye Off the Ball by Pat Kieran, one of which the books I highly recommend people read if they really want to follow along for the game. And, I played around with a few of his different styles of charting, and earned first downs is something that I find interesting, where, you start a possession, do you run or you pass more on 1st and 10? But when you earn that during a drive, how does the team have their tendencies play out? Well, a lot of the time you could kind of predict second half tendencies for a team based off what they did in the first half. Again, this is just one of the weirder games I've watched. I feel like I'm still trying to kind of reckon with what I was seeing there. In the first half, they had 9 total first downs that they had earned. They ran on 2 of those and passed on 7 of them, completed 5 of those passes, and had 3 touchdowns off of those. And then in the second half, they threw 1 pass, just 1, after getting a first down. It was for 6 yards. Then they rushed 10 times on earned first downs for 41 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. I mean, it's basically like North Texas came out in the first half, and then they went into the tunnel at halftime, came out, and it was, pure brand Tulane football, to be honest with you, of what I think really Fritz really wants to do, especially to close out those games. I mean, to just completely hold a stranglehold on the time of possession the entirety of the second half, especially in your final 2 possessions. I mean, I know they kneeled down at the end of the game, but really, being that proverbial end of the game, 9 minutes and 56 seconds, following an 8-minute and 5-second one, and just completely committing to the run after largely passing for the most part in this game. Again, having to watch for zero as a receiver. They do a really good job of using the tight end that is in their offset I formation as a decoy on several plays, and then would end up kind of leaning on that guy and targeting him for one of the touchdown drives. I spread the ball out to 8 different receivers during that game, and 10 receivers have connected. He's connected with for 30 yards or more this season. One of those is Luke McCaffrey. Yes, the brother of Christian McCaffrey, and the son of Ed McCaffrey, who was also a wide receiver. And you could definitely see the traits of that family really take hold. I mean, they use him a lot on jet sweep plays. He's really who I'd kind of say would be their Keith Brown, Jaquan Jackson kind of running wide receiver. Not that great at it, at least in the Tulsa game. But again, that really spreads out the offense, spreads the field, and gives you some tendencies about your opponent's coverage. So again, Tulane does it all the time, even if they don't necessarily hand the ball off. But you have to watch for him against the run. You have to watch for the running backs against the pass, and you have to really watch for those explosive plays. It stuck out to me that they threw a 41-yard pass on 3rd and short in that game. It just really, again, caught everyone off guard. They exclusively threw on 3rd and 6, or I'm sorry, 3 and 3 to 6 range plays. They completed all 4 passes, but then again, they really just committed to the run and shut everything down. So Tulane is going to have to stop a quarterback that throws before the receiver's even there, really, again, right before the receiver breaks, has really good anticipation. Him and Luke McCaffrey clearly have that chemistry, and he has it with a bunch of other guys, including number 80 for them, Rawson McNeil. But then there was an entire series where number 17, Landon Ransom Goals, basically just ate up the whole field for him. And then he threw some tight ends in there, and I believe one of them on 3rd or 4th down, it was his 4th catch all year. So a veteran quarterback on a 6th year. I know it's his first year under center with Bryce, and you could certainly try to take advantage of that, but it's definitely going to be a really all hands on deck game for Tulane's defense, and having to really shut down at least a non-mobile quarterback. I'd say that the veteran presence is equivalent there with Pratt and JT Daniels. Pratt has the edge of, more time with the team. JT Daniels has just literal years on him, but Pratt could extend plays with his legs in a way JT Daniels can't. I say that, and then one of the rushing touchdowns in the second half was an 8-yard rush touchdown by him, but it was not pretty. And I think, again, if the defense hadn't been out there for 8 minutes up to that point, maybe they would have gotten to him sooner. But this is going to be a game where I think the defensive line for Tulane, just getting that pressure, is really going to make a difference here. There's been 4 games this year, I believe, where JT Daniels has been sacked 2 or more times. 3 of those are their losses on the year. So it's not an exact correlation, but I really think the idea of just getting to him and really making him hurried in the pocket, uncomfortable in the pocket, and just taking away that option right to start. That's where, again, I always think back to when the Saints drafted Peyton Turner, not the best example if you're a Saints fan out there right now, but it's Sean Payton's comments after the fact of saying it's a passing game, so we drafted an edge. It makes absolute sense. The best way to shut down the pass is literally to just get to the quarterback. And again, one that's not relatively mobile at that. And you will have time to catch your breath because they basically let the play clock. I mean, that's essentially how you get those 8-minute and 9-minute drives. They let the play clock run down to 1 basically every time. It's the longest clock in FBS right now. I don't really know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, to be honest with you, because I've never really, again, come across a team that just that game is just, again, quite a bit of an enigma to me, but just a lot about them is. So that's going to be a really curious question for me. What I'm going to probably have to watch play out in real time. Another key for me in this game is Tulane has been really good on third down all year. They've allowed a few fourth downs. That in this game against Tulsa, there were 13 third down conversions, and they were successful on 7 of them. All 7 of those came in those 3 second half touchdown drives. So that really, again, is something that's going to be essential for Tulane's defense. They also had a fourth down conversion up to that point as well. But again, the turnover battle is going to be really important. The time of possession is going to be paramount. And this is really going to be a curious game for me. I don't know how Rice is going to approach this. Are we going to get, half 1 Owls or half 2 Owls, or is it going to be switch kind of thing? It's just, again, it's really versatile offense that really can get you on the ground and in the air. And again, to have 3 running backs used in that final series where they ran the ball, again, 10 times on that final drive, and to really have that split up between those backs, using an I formation with their fullback ultimately to score the final red zone touchdown. So in terms of how they use their running backs and kind of, having that offset eye with the tight end, using him in motion, it reminds me a lot of Alex Bauman. So you'd like to think that there are a lot of tendencies that I could see Tulane in on Rice's side that, again, film study and knowing what they're able to do with that running back group, but their tight ends are really strong. And again, to have that receiving option, and there were some plays where, he was split out empty, and then some you would just delay out of the backfield. There was a toss to zero. The coverage is really going to have to be hands on deck for Tulane. And I mean, they really just can't afford to have that same kind of second half issues that they did against North Texas, because North Texas does not hold the football for as long as Rice does. And it just felt like there was just no chance for Tulsa at all. And that's really demoralizing. And so I think, again, starting strong is going to be super important for Tulane, especially against a team that is outscoring opponents 90-13 in the first quarter. I mean, it's really hard to look at their schedule and kind of figure out what's going right or what's going wrong for them. But this is probably one of the games that, you don't know that much about the opponent for, but really are going to come out there and play hard. Again, I haven't had that much time to really look at their defense. I know that it really favors, again, running the football. And you'd like to see them, again, really get the receivers for Tulane involved back in the running game, and ideally kind of hammer out that running back 2 position. And this seems like a game that's really primed for the taking on that, because to be honest, Tulane kind of has to run the football and extend those drives if you're going to be playing against an offense that lets the play clock run down on every single play. It's just a weird way, again, that you see tempo, you see 2-minute drills, you rarely see the antithesis. But that is very much what's going on with them. And so Tulane just can't afford to, again, Willie Fritz's comments at the end of the third quarter against UNT saying that, they need to make another stop and they need to score one more time. That, again, might not happen if they're trailing in the third quarter and are not able to make those third down stops, because Rice has shown that even though they are really a pass happy team and have the receiving corp that they do, that they will run the football down your throats to end the game. And so it's going to be a very interesting game, one that I'm a lot more intrigued about than I was prior to looking all this up. But again, it's just, to go 42-10, you'd think that it would be a little less chaotic than it was. But those 3 touchdown drives in the first half, 2 of them being off of turnovers, and again, having 3 turnovers in the first quarter when they've had 5 all season, that to me is signs of a team really starting to click here. Their passing offense is first in FBS. They've scored on 13 of their last 18 possessions in the first quarter and 3 of their first 7 possessions. So again, it's just a strong start, and being able to bottleneck the finish, that is an opponent that you definitely have to think really hard about. So again, I can't give away injury information for Tulane or anything that I've learned today, but again, trying to get as much health back on that defensive line as possible, but trying to get a little more creative with your pressure, because we've seen Tulane blitz the linebackers. We've seen them bring in guys like Jarius Monroe on the line of scrimmage, Cam Pettislow at certain points. And I know that there were some secondary injuries against North Texas last weekend, and it wouldn't surprise me if that led to the fact that we didn't see as many kind of creative blitzes in that way, because you had depth guys that were struggling in coverage. You couldn't really afford to take one of your veteran guys like Pettislow and put him on the line of scrimmage for a lot of those plays. But this game, pressuring the quarterback and trying to win the turnover battle is really going to be essential here, because they just, again, have a really strong group of wide receivers and also very good at the situational awareness. There was one drive where they had no timeouts left. It was a minute left. I believe it was that final touchdown drive of the first half. And every single pass was thrown to the sideline, and every single time the receiver got out of bounds. And they actually had 2 timeouts left and didn't even end up needing to use them. But to have that command and poise and presence, and again, to be able to move it that quickly when they need to, and be able to really just slow it down when they need to, this is definitely going to be a test for Tulane, and one that I think if they are able to shut down the offense for Rice, well, you could feel a lot better about any issues that you've seen with secondary struggles or anything like that, where health can play a role, bad outings can play a role about bouncing one way or the other, and again, an onside kick recovery, and then just getting kind of gashed and exhausted like that. It's why I never look too far ahead and always really subscribe again to that 1-0 mentality. But this is definitely going to be a test for Tulane, and it's going to be a really earned road victory at that. But I've always said that Tulane really thrives off the road, and that, they have the 3rd active long road winning streak in FBS football right now, behind Georgia and Michigan, I believe. So we've seen them perform on the road well, and we've seen them shut down the run. We've seen them shut down the pass, but not necessarily all at the same time. And so this is going to be an all hands on deck, one that they have to start strong, and one that they really can't afford to be trailing and looking for that final possession in the 4th quarter, because there's just a strong chance that Rice is not going to give it back to you. So I think, again, this game will really tell you all you need to know about Tulane at this point in the year, and probably a lot about Rice as well, because, for 7 weeks of play for them, like I said, I don't really know what to make of them, but you can't ignore the way that they are able to just really adapt to different situations, different halves, and have the ability to not be one-dimensional at any point in time. That's something that is going to be a challenge for Tulane. So I'm looking forward to this kickoff. And with that, y'all, I will see you for my post-game analysis on next Tuesday.